Good morning, third graders. Welcome to lesson 7 of our fictional narratives unit. Today, we're going to be talking about how writers set goals. And before we do that, we have some writing shout outs. The first one's coming from Hadil. This is only part of her story, this is just like the beginning. But what I notice and love about Hadil's organization is that each time there's a new scene, and as the problem gets worse in her story, she presses enter 2 times, presses tab, and starts a new paragraph. It's really easy to read. It makes it really readable for the reader. And it just shows that she's really following along in her story mountain as it goes up and gets worse and worse. I also noticed the same thing coming from John. John also did a great job at putting in paragraphs and making sure that as the problem gets worse, for each scene, there's a new paragraph. So keep that up. I can't wait for some more shout outs for tomorrow. Today, I want to teach you that when writers set goals writers set goals to improve their writing. They can do this by using a checklist to see where they're at in their writing. So hopefully, most of you have finished your first draft from beginning to end already. This will be a great lesson for you if you've done that already, because you're going to be able to see all of your writing and use this checklist that we'll go over to see how you're doing and what you might need to add, or just feel awesome at what you already have. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this. So what I did is I put up in Google Classroom, Miss Debbie will do the same thing. You're going to notice a new document. It's called the Narrative Writing Goals Sheet. So we'll be using this for today's lesson today. We're going to be clicking on this. And I'm actually going to use this copy. It looks the same as this one, so I'm going to show you this. So let's just take a quick glance at this. This is the third grade narrative writing checklist. And down here, you can see part of the assignment for today. So today, you won't be drafting that much, especially if you've already finished yesterday. If you didn't finish, you should work on that for sure. But this is mostly what you're going to be focusing on today. So let's go through this, okay? Third grade narrative writing checklist. There's a few things that we need to make sure we have in our reading or in our writing. And what we're going to do is we're just going to be super honest. We're going to put an X next to if we have it or not. So not yet, don't have it, but I will eventually. I'm going to be honest with myself, and we'll use my example of my writing to do that. And then starting to, like, I'm pretty much almost there, but I have a couple more things I could do. And then, yes, I got it. I'm feeling good about that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one, the lead. This is also known as the introduction. So, and I'm actually going to maybe even write that in here so that we know. It's a little different from an introduction that we've done for opinion and informational writing, but it is going to be your first paragraph. So I wrote a beginning in which I helped readers know who the characters were and what the setting was in my story. So let's look back at my version. I remember Miss W doing this lesson. Who is Aldo? And then the setting is obviously at a school because they're sitting on the carpet. So I did that. Because I did that, I'm going to say yes. And all I have to do is put a little X here. It can be uppercase or lowercase. We'll know the difference. Great. Let's move on. Transitions. Everyone say transitions. So we've done a lot of work with that in opinion and informational writing. And in narrative writing, it looks a little different. Some of the phrases that you can use, and we'll go over this in a different lesson. So you might have like starting to, if you have some of these phrases, but some of these phrases might include a little later or after that, the next day. So let's go ahead and look at my version. Oh, look, I can already see the next day. That's a transition word. Ooh, a few weeks go by. That's a transition phrase as well. So I have some, the next day, that works. But I might want to go back later and kind of add in a few more. I bet I could add in a few more later. So I'm actually going to say I'm starting to have transitions. Let's move on. Organization. I use paragraphs and skip lines to separate what happened first from what happened later. And finally, in my story. So here's a little drawing of that. Notice that there's different paragraphs. It's really easy to tell because there's skipped lines. And I actually think that's something I did really well at in my writing. I can see that there's different paragraphs, and the paragraphs mean that there's a different time happening. So it's the next day or a few weeks go by. So I can tell that there's a separation of those thoughts because I skipped a line and started a new paragraph. So I'm actually going to put, yes, I did do that. Elaboration. Ooh, we know that word so well. So say it and do it with me. Elaboration. Nice. I work to show what happened to and in my characters. We haven't talked so much about that, but it's kind of like, how was your character feeling when all of this was happening? Now, if I go back, I wonder if I can find a part where Aldo is feeling something. Well, it says Aldo begins to panic, not knowing where to turn or what to do. I have some of that, but I might want to work on that. I think that I could do a little bit better of showing exactly how Aldo is feeling. So I'm also going to put an X. Now, in other ways, my elaboration was pretty strong, right? I wrote a lot. So I don't know if I need to add in more paragraphs, but I might want to add in more about how Aldo felt. And that's one way to elaborate in your story. Dialogue. Ooh, dialogue is when characters talk to each other in the story. We're going to have a whole lesson about this in a little bit. I had a dialogue to bring my characters to life. Let's see. Ooh. The only place, let's see. I have a little bit of that here because I can see the quotation marks, but really nowhere else. Even in this whole conversation with Lisbeth and Tyrell, they never have any dialogue. So I'm not really bringing the character or the scene to life. I could do a much better job. I'm actually going to even say, like, I don't have that yet. That's something I definitely want to work on. Spelling and punctuation. So we know that every sentence ends with punctuation. Every sentence begins with a capital letter. And we want to spell most of the words we know correctly. So I'm looking back and I'm noticing, even if I just look at the first paragraph, that yes, I do have punctuation at the end of each pair or in each sentence. So that's something I think that I'm doing pretty well. Later, when I'm editing, I'm going to go back in and read it again to make sure I have everything where I want it to be and spelled correctly. But I would say that yes, I think I do have that right now. Okay, so I finished doing the checklist and I did notice I only put one X in per category. So that's all I had to do right there. If I scroll down, which is exactly what you're going to do, the only last assignment you have for today, this is super simple, is your student goals for narrative writing. So we want to see what is something that you're feeling confident about. Like, what's a strength that you have in your writing? One way you might be able to tell is like, were there any places where you put yes? So I'm going to look at mine. And I put a yes for lead. And I also put a yes for organization. I actually think that my organization was the part I'm feeling most confident about. I feel very confident about the paragraphs I used and knowing that I used those paragraphs correctly. So what I'm going to write in, something I'm feeling confident about is, and I don't have to write a whole sentence for this, I can just kind of bullet point it, is my organization. And then I might elaborate a little bit more and say, I separated parts of my story into different paragraphs. Okay, something I am working on is, well, there was quite a bit that I know I was starting to do or didn't have at all. And I'm going to see if there's anything I didn't have at all. Oh, of course. It's dialogue. I know I want to work on that. That's something, a big goal of mine. Something I'm working on is I'm going to say adding in dialogue to show, oh, I spelled that wrong, so I'm just going to click on it, to show what the characters are saying and feeling. And I'm going to add in more a little bit too. This will help bring my story to life. So that's something I'm going to be working on the next couple days in my piece. You might actually have the same one if you didn't have dialogue too. But make sure you go back and see. You might even have a couple more. So don't be afraid to put in another bullet point, especially if you're having some strengths and then some things that you want to work on. This is a great reminder of, oh yeah, like I'm going to work on my draft today and I'm going to be working on these things. Okay, the last step that you need to complete today is this part. It says, Dear Miss Klein and Miss W, when you read my writing, please notice. So today you're actually going to go back into your writing and maybe you're going to work on one of these things that you wrote down. So you might write down, please notice that I added in dialogue, or please notice that I added in transition words. So that's going to be my example I write down. When you read my writing, please notice that I added in transition words. That's going to help me and Miss W be able to look at your work and notice all the awesome things you're doing and how you're improving as a writer. You might also go on to say, please notice how I elaborated by talking more about how the character felt throughout the story. Okay? So you don't have to write too much for this, but the more you write, the more we're going to notice. Okay? So really make sure that you're filling out your goal sheet by first making sure you're writing an X in each of these for what you're doing. What we don't want to see is you're just going to, some students do this where they just put yes for everything. But then I go back and see that, oh, wait, they didn't actually have dialogue. So they shouldn't have put yes. Just be honest with yourself. It's not a grade. This is just to see where we're at right now. Okay. And then make sure you fill in something you're feeling confident about, something you're working on. And then let Miss Klein and Miss W know what you're working on, okay? Or something that we should notice because you fixed it. Okay, best of luck. I'm really excited to see some of your goals for this next little bit.